"This is my last chance to be beautiful," she said. She was 60 years old, and she had bought herself a white silk gown for my wedding. When I refused, she cried. She said I was selfish. She said I was ruining her moment to shine. She said if I forced her into some sad mother color, she would stay home, and every guest would whisper about the daughter who couldn't make room for her own mother. So I let her wear it. I let her arrive in floor-length white. I let her smile for the photographer. I let her step onto the long aisle of Asheville Botanical Gardens in front of 140 people. Then she picked up a wedding program from a chair, and she read one line, and she never finished walking. If this is already hitting you, take a second to like this video and subscribe, and drop your location and local time in the comments. I love knowing where you're listening from. I'm Kala, 27. The mother in that white gown is named Patricia. The mother who got me to this aisle is named Odessa. Let me take you back to last October. Henry proposed under the wisteria at Asheville Botanical Gardens on the second Saturday of October. The vines had finished blooming weeks earlier, but he had walked the path with me the spring before, and he remembered that I had told him I wanted to be married somewhere that would have looked beautiful in another season. It was a small thing he did. He did a lot of those. We had been together for 2.5 years. He worked at the same landscape firm I did, Halloran and Tate, a 6-person studio on Wall Street downtown that designed public parks, library courtyards, hospital gardens. I'd been there since 2020. Henry came on board a year after me. He has gentle hands and a slow voice, and when I told him the first time about my mother, all he said was, "Okay, that was the right answer." There is no other right answer. When he asked, I did not cry. I am not a woman who cries easily. I said yes, and I sat down on the bench beside him, and I called my stepmother before I called anyone else. Odessa answered on the second ring. I told her. She did not say anything for a long moment. Then she said, "Oh, honey," and I heard her start to laugh and cry at the same time, the way she does when she is trying to be a librarian about her feelings. I told my dad after I told Odessa, "Robert is a quiet man, a carpenter who has built every piece of furniture in our house himself, except the table Odessa picked out the first month they were married. He said, 'He's a good one, sweetheart.'" Then he turned around and pretended to fix the cabinet hinge because he did not want me to see him wipe his eyes. My brother Jonas, Robert and Odessa's son, is 10. He clapped. Then he asked if he could be the ring bearer. "Of course," I said. I did not call Patricia that night. She is my biological mother. She lives in Charlotte, 2 hours east, and she had been back in North Carolina for just over half a year. I had spoken to her on the phone exactly 4 times since she returned in February. Each call lasted under 12 minutes. Each call ended with her telling me she was praying for our relationship, even though Patricia is not a praying woman, and I did not want to remind her of that. 2 weeks after Henry proposed, on a Tuesday evening, my phone rang. The number was new. The voice was not. "Kala, honey, I heard about the engagement," I had not told her. "From who?" I asked. "Whitney's mother ran into me at Harris Teeter." That was a lie. Whitney's mother had never met Patricia in her life. Whitney had not even told her own mother about the engagement, and we both knew that. I let the lie pass. I have been letting lies pass for a long time. Mom, I said, I was going to call you. I'm sure you were. There was a silence. Patricia is very good at silences. She uses them like punctuation in someone else's sentence. Honey, she said, I need to be a part of this. Let me make up for everything. Let me earn it. I closed my eyes. I was sitting on my kitchen floor. I do not know why, but I had sat down on the kitchen floor when I saw her number. Henry was at the stove making pasta. He did not look at me. He knew not to. Okay, Mom, I said. I did not say yes. I did not say no. I said okay. There is a difference, and I knew it, but I did not have the energy to make it in that moment, on the floor with the smell of garlic coming from the stove. Patricia took it as yes. Oh, baby, you won't regret this. This will be the most beautiful wedding the South has ever seen. She had not asked where the wedding would be. To understand why my mother could say, "Let me earn it," and mean only the version that flattered her, you have to go back 15 years. The summer I was 12, my mother started going to open houses with a woman from her real estate brokerage. They were not selling property. They were going to look at it. Patricia would come home flushed, with her hair pulled out of the clip on the side, and she would tell my dad about the kitchen on Providence Road, the master bath on Sharon Lane, the pool house in Myers Park. My dad listened. He always listened. In June, she came home with a business card. She did not tell me whose card it was. She put it in her jewelry box at the top of her dresser. I was 12, and I was nosy, and I knew where the jewelry box was. The card said Vincent J. Castellano, and there was a phone number. And on the back, in pencil, in handwriting I did not recognize, there was the time 8:30 written like a question, with a small drawing of a wave next to it. I did not understand the wave then. I understood it later. By August, Patricia had stopped sleeping at home most nights. She told my dad she was running an open house overnight at a luxury listing, that the seller wanted constant security, and the brokerage was paying her extra. My dad knew brokerages do not pay agents to sleep in empty houses. He did not say it. In early September, before my 13th birthday, Patricia came home one evening in a linen dress I had never seen. White, sleeveless, narrow at the waist. She told me she had something to tell me. We were in the kitchen. The refrigerator was humming. She sat down across from me and folded her hands. "Calla," she said, "Mommy has to go find herself." I did not say anything. "You're going to be okay. Daddy will take care of you. I will come back when I am ready. This is something I have to do for me." She slid a piece of yellow legal paper across the table. On it, in her round, looping handwriting, were the words, "I have to find myself." That was the note she left for my father. She handed it to me first. She wanted me to give it to him. She wanted to make me her courier on the way out. I did not give him the note. I tore it up in the bathroom and flushed it down the toilet. And I told my dad she had left. And I told him I did not know where. He did not press me. He held my shoulders the way you hold a cup that is just slightly too hot. We did not hear from her for 3 months. Then a postcard arrived from La Jolla, California. The picture was a beach at sunset. The message said only, "Doing well. Will call when settled." "Mom," I was 12. I knew what Beach La Jolla had. I had looked it up in the school library at lunch. The first year was the worst year of my life. I will not pretend it was character building. It was just a year I survived, because my father survived it with me. He made me cereal with the milk warmed in the microwave, because I told him cold milk tasted like a hospital. He drove me to band practice on Friday nights. He learned how to do a French braid by watching 3 YouTube videos on a laptop he balanced on the kitchen counter. By the time I was 13, I had stopped asking when she was coming home. By the time I was 14, I had stopped asking why she had left. That summer, the summer of my 14th year, my father came home from the public library on a Tuesday afternoon. He had a stack of books in one arm and a slow, shy smile I had not seen on his face in 2 years. "There's somebody I'd like you to meet," he said. "She works at the children's desk." I said okay. I did not say I was happy for him, because I was not yet, but I did not say I was angry either. I had stopped being angry. I had moved into a place that was quieter than angry, which is what 12-year-old girls do when their mothers leave them with notes on yellow paper. He brought Odessa home for coffee that Saturday. She arrived in a cream cardigan that had been mended carefully at the elbow. She brought a small bouquet of mint from her own garden, because she did not know what kind of flowers I liked, and she did not want to guess wrong. She sat at our kitchen table, the same kitchen table where Patricia had told me she had to find herself 2 summers earlier, and she looked at me, and she did something that I have never forgotten. She did not say, "I know this must be hard." She did not say, "I'm not trying to replace your mother." She did not say any of the lines a stranger might say to a teenage girl whose mother had left. She said, "What do you like to read?" That was the first sentence Odessa ever said to me. I stared at her. I said, "I like Mary Oliver." She nodded, and she said, "She makes me cry when I'm not ready." Then she drank her coffee, and she let the silence sit between us, the way you let a bird land on a branch without trying to grab it. I knew in that first hour that this woman was different. I did not let myself believe it for another 2 years. But I knew. When my dad walked her to her car that night, I watched from the window. He held the car door open for her. She turned around before she got in, and she touched his cheek with the back of her hand. He closed his eyes for 1 second. I was 14. I did not understand yet what it meant to be loved without spectacle. I would learn. My dad and Odessa were married the following June in our backyard. 12 people. Robert wore a suit he had owned since 1991. Odessa wore a dress the color of butter that she had sewn herself, because she said store-bought wedding dresses made her feel like she was wearing someone else's mother. I held the bouquet for her during the ceremony. She had asked me to. She did not ask me to call her Mom. Not at the wedding, not after. She did not ask me to call her anything in particular. She introduced herself when people came by the house in the months that followed as Robert's wife. When she met my friends at high school events, she said, "I'm Odessa. I'm here for Calla." She never said stepmother. She never said mom. She let me decide. She filled the house slowly. She would buy a book and leave it on the second stair, where I would find it on my way up to my room. Wendell Berry, Mary Oliver, a small worn copy of A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. She never told me she had bought them for me. She just left them. If I took one to my room, the next week another would appear. If I did not take it, she did not comment. I had 4 wisdom teeth pulled the summer I was 16. My dad had a contracting job. He could not move. Odessa took the morning off from the library and drove me to the oral surgeon. She sat in the waiting room for 4 hours. When they brought me out, my face was the size of a softball, and I was making sounds I could not have made on purpose. She did not laugh. She helped me into the car. She drove me home with one hand on my forearm, like she was making sure I did not float away. I threw up twice in her car. She did not look upset. She got me into bed and put a cold cloth on my cheek, and she said, "Don't try to talk, sweetie." She slept in the recliner outside my room that night. I never thanked her for it. I think she knew. She had a baby of her own this spring. I was almost 17. At 45, after one miscarriage the year before that none of us had known about until it happened. Jonas was born in May. He came out small and red and very loud, and the doctor handed him to my father, and my father walked him over to Odessa with the careful, slow walk of a man holding something he did not yet believe was his. She asked me to come closer. She put Jonas in my arms before she held him herself. I did not know what to do with a newborn. He was lighter than I expected, and warmer. He stopped crying. He looked up at me with eyes that were not yet a color. I said, without meaning to, "Mom, he's beautiful." The word came out before I had decided to say it. Odessa heard it. She looked at me from the hospital bed, and her eyes filled, and she said, and I will never forget the exact words, "Only when you really mean it, sweetheart. Don't say it because of today." She gave me my brother. Then she gave me the choice. That is the woman she is. I called her Mom intermittently after that. Sometimes I called her Odessa. She never corrected either one. When I left for NC State in the fall of 2015, she packed my dorm box with one of her cardigans tucked at the bottom. There was a note in the cardigan pocket. It said, "In case the dorm is cold, bring it back if you don't need it. Either way's fine." I did not bring it back. I wore it for the next 4 years. Patricia sent me a card my freshman move-in week. It was a Hallmark with a generic photograph of cherry blossoms on the front. Inside, she had written, "So proud of my college girl." Mom! She had spelled my middle name wrong. My middle name is B. She wrote B with 2 E's, like the insect. I put the card in a desk drawer. I left it there for 5 years. The day I graduated, I took it out and I put it back and I closed the drawer. I do not know why I did not throw it out. I think part of me wanted a record. I graduated from NC State in May 2020. Odessa drove 8 hours to the ceremony with Robert and Jonas in the back. They sat in the 3rd row. Odessa held my framed diploma like it was an infant. Patricia sent another card. The card said, "So proud. Love, Mom." There was no signature beyond Mom. The handwriting did not match. After graduation, I came home to Asheville. I rented a small apartment in West Asheville, 2 blocks from a coffee shop where the barista learned my order in the first week. I started at Halloran and Tate in August. My first project was redesigning the courtyard of the Pack Memorial Library, which was the library where Odessa had been a children's librarian for 24 years. She was so proud of that small fact that she told the entire branch, and I had to eat a piece of cake at the desk on the day the design was approved. I met Henry in April 2022. We were both assigned to the master plan for a new pollinator park in West Asheville. He was the landscape engineer. I was the lead designer. We disagreed for the first 4 meetings, very politely, and then I made the mistake of asking him to go look at the site with me on a Saturday. And he made the mistake of bringing 2 coffees instead of 1. He was kind to my dad. He was kind to Jonas. The first time he met Odessa, he brought her a pressed flower from the pollinator site, framed in a little wooden frame he had made himself. Odessa kept it on her bedside table. She still keeps it there. He proposed in October 2024. Patricia called 2 weeks later, on the Tuesday I told you about, and she said, "Let me make up for everything." I had not seen Patricia in just under 15 years. She had returned to Charlotte in February 2024, 8 months earlier, after 14 years in California. Her return had not been announced. I had heard about it from a former neighbor who saw her at the post office. I had not gone to see her. I had told her, in our first phone call after she returned, that I was not ready. She had said she understood. She had said she would wait. She had not waited. She had called me 3 more times, in the next 6 months, each time with a different reason. To apologize, to update me on her health, to ask if I would like a piece of her grandmother's brooch, which I knew she had pawned in 2011. I let those calls go to voicemail. When she called after my engagement, I picked up. I do not know why I picked up. I think I had been waiting for an excuse to give her one more chance, and the wedding was the excuse. And I took it. I told her she could come. I told her I would think about her role. I told her I would call her back the next day with details. Henry watched me hang up the phone. He sat down next to me on the kitchen floor. I was still on the kitchen floor, and he put his hand on the back of my neck. He said, "You know you don't have to." "I know," I said. "You know she will make this about her." "I know." "Then why are you saying yes?" I thought about it for a long time, before I answered. I am not a woman who answers questions she has not thought about. I said, finally, "Because I want to know if she's changed. I want to know if she can do one thing that isn't about her. If she can't, I want to see it clearly. I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering." He nodded. He did not argue. Whitney, my maid of honor, my best friend since the 3rd week of college, was less generous when I told her. Whitney is a litigator with the public defender's office in Raleigh, and she does not believe in giving second chances to people who have not paid for the first chance. "Calla," she said, "you are letting her near the wedding. I am letting her come to the wedding. Those are different things, and you know it." She was right, I did know it. But I did it anyway. Patricia flew into Asheville Regional Airport on a Wednesday afternoon in November. She came down the escalator in a cream cashmere coat I knew she could not afford. Her hair was platinum and freshly cut. She saw me at the bottom of the escalator, and she covered her mouth with both hands, and she ran the last 6 steps. She hugged me. It lasted 4 seconds. Then she stepped back. She held my shoulders. She looked at my face. She did not ask about Henry. She did not ask about Dad. She did not ask about Odessa, whom she had never met. She did not ask about Jonas, whom she had never asked about by name in any of our phone calls. She said, Honey, does the venue have a good place for photographs? I want to be sure I'm in the light. That was the first thing she said to me after 15 years. In November, Patricia organized an engagement party in Charlotte without asking me first. She told me 3 days before the event that an old colleague of hers had offered her home in Eastover for the evening. She had invited a small group of 72 people, most of whom I had never met. She had hired a florist. She had ordered a cake with the wrong color icing, and our wrong wedding date piped on the side in cursive. She had written a speech. Henry and I drove to Charlotte on a Saturday morning. We stayed at a hotel because Patricia's condo had only one guest bedroom, and she was already sleeping in the other one. A sentence she used to tell me. She was already sleeping in the second bedroom. Like that was a sacrifice she had made for me. The party was, in fact, beautiful. Patricia is good at beautiful surfaces. She wore a blush silk dress and pearl earrings. She stood at the door and greeted each guest by name, and she introduced me to people who had never spoken my name in their lives, but who said, "Oh, you're the daughter Patricia raised alone. What a miracle." At 9 o'clock, she clinked a knife against her champagne flute. She spoke for 9 minutes. I timed it without meaning to. I had taken my phone out to text Odessa back about a question regarding rehearsal dinner flowers, and I watched the seconds tick by. Patricia spoke about the sacrifices of single motherhood. She spoke about driving me to ballet at 6 in the morning, which I had never taken. She spoke about the ER trip in 1998 when she had carried me, a baby of 1, through a snowstorm to the hospital after I spiked a fever. Charlotte does not have snow in October, which is when she said this happened, and I was not even an infant in 1998. I was 1-year-old, yes, but I was a healthy 1-year-old, and we had lived in a single-story house with central heat. I sat at table 4. I smiled. I did not correct her. Henry, beside me, took my hand under the tablecloth and pressed his thumb 3 slow times against the inside of my wrist, a thing we had done since the second month we were dating, which meant I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. Whitney was not at the engagement party. Patricia had not invited her. Patricia had told me she ran out of space. When I told Whitney this, on a phone call the next morning, Whitney was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Calla, will you let me look into something?" I said yes, I trusted her. Whitney is a litigator. She can find anything anyone has ever posted to the internet. She found Patricia's old Instagram account from San Diego. Patricia had deleted it, but Whitney pulled it from the Wayback Machine, which I had not known you could do. She sent me the screenshots a week later. On a Tuesday night, while Henry and I were eating pasta, I scrolled. There was Patricia in 2013, in a coral bikini, on a yacht in the bay. There was Patricia in 2015, holding a cocktail at a beach club. There was Patricia in 2017, at a vineyard tasting with a man 20 years younger than her. There was Patricia at her own birthday party in 2019. 60 guests, balloons spelling her name, a cake that said Queen of La Jolla in pink letters. I scrolled for an hour. There was not a single photograph of me. There was not a single mention of me. There was not a single post that referenced a child, a daughter, a high school graduation, a college acceptance, a missed birthday, a regret. There were 312 posts on the account. None of them included my name. I put my phone down on the table. I looked at Henry. I said, "She did not miss me." He did not argue. He did not soothe. He said, "I know, sweetheart." The bridal shower was in January. Odessa hosted it. Henry's mother, Maren, co-hosted because Maren had become close to Odessa in the 18 months Henry and I had been engaged. They drank tea together once a week. They had started a small book club between just the two of them. Maren was the woman who, at my engagement party, had whispered to Henry in the elevator going down to the lobby, "Honey, who is this woman in there?" The shower was at the Ainsworth House in Black Mountain. 22 women, lemon bars, a pile of garden tools wrapped in green ribbon. Because everyone who knew me knew I would rather have a good pair of pruners than a fondue set. Patricia stood up at 3 in the afternoon and asked if she could say a few words. She spoke for 11 minutes. I timed it again. I cannot help myself anymore. She spoke about a snowstorm that had never happened. She spoke about driving me to a hospital that did not exist in our zip code. She spoke about the dance recitals I had never been in. She spoke about a piano teacher named Mrs. Foley, who was not real. Odessa sat in the back of the room. She held her tea. She did not look at anyone. Maren caught my eye across the kitchen island. Henry's mother, who had loved me for 2.5 years, looked at me with a question on her face. I could not answer her question. Not yet. Patricia finished her speech. People clapped politely. Patricia sat down and ate a lemon bar and asked Odessa if she could pass the napkins. Odessa passed the napkins. That night, after the guests left, I sat with Whitney on the back deck of Maren's house. We were the last two there. Whitney lit one of Maren's candles. She said, "Are you ready to talk about it?" I said, "I think I have been letting the wrong woman take credit for raising me." Whitney did not say anything. She just put her hand on top of mine. That was the night I started thinking about the program. In February, I drove to my parents' house on a Sunday morning to drop off a deposit check for the rehearsal dinner. The air smelled like cold leaves. I let myself in with the key I have had since I was 15. Odessa was in the front room, in the rocking chair near the window. She had a piece of white tulle across her lap. She had a needle in her hand. She was hemming my veil. She had been working on it since November, when I had told her, half a sentence in passing, that I had not bought a veil yet, and that the ones in the boutique cost $1,000 and felt like polyester. She had said, "I'll see what I can do." She had not mentioned it since. I sat on the couch across from her. I did not say anything for a moment. Her hands moved in small, careful loops. I noticed she had a small purple bruise on the back of her left hand, in the soft skin between her thumb and her index finger. She had been working on the veil at night. She had not told me. "Not." "Mom," I said, "why didn't you tell me?" She looked up. She had her reading glasses halfway down her nose. "Tell you what, sweetie, how hard you've been working on this. How tired you've been. You're at the library all day, and then you're up at night with this." She tipped her head a little. She put the needle down. She said, "Sweetheart, it isn't hard. It looks hard. It is just sitting. I sit at the desk all day. I sit in this chair at night. I'm sitting either way. This time I am also making something for you." I did not say anything. "Kala," she said, "listen to me a minute." I listened. "I never told you it was hard because it wasn't hard. Raising you wasn't a sacrifice. It was a thing that came into my life, and I said yes to it. And I have not regretted 1 minute of yes. The hard things were yours. They were not mine. I did not get to do hard. I only got to stay. That is the whole thing. That is the only part of the story I know how to tell." She picked up the veil again. She did not look at me. She started hemming. The needle dipped and rose, dipped and rose. I sat on the couch. The sun moved across the floor. I watched her for a long time. I watched the bruise on the back of her hand. I watched her sew. After a while, I said, "Mom, can I help?" She said, "Bring me the other spool of thread, the one on the dining room table." I brought her the thread. I sat on the floor next to the rocking chair. She handed me a corner of the veil to hold flat. We did not talk for the next hour. It was the quietest hour I had spent in my life. It was also the warmest. Jonas came home from a friend's house at 3. He saw us. He said, "What are you guys doing?" I said, "We're making something." He nodded. He sat down on the floor next to me and took out his book. We were all on the floor together, in the front room in the late afternoon light. My dad came in from the workshop. He saw us. He did not say anything. He sat down on the couch with a coffee. He did not turn on the television. He did not check his phone. He just sat there with us. When I drove back to Asheville that night, I called Henry from the car. I told him about the veil. I told him about the bruise. I told him what Odessa had said about staying. I said, "Henry, I think I have been letting the wrong woman sit in that chair for 14 years. Henry was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Tell me what you want to do, and I will help you do it." I did not know yet, but I was beginning to know. Patricia called me 3 times that week. Each call was about the ceremony. She wanted to know if she could walk down the aisle separately from the bridal party, in her own slow processional with her own song. She wanted to know if she could give a mother's blessing before the vows. She wanted to know if I could ask Henry's mother to step back from the front row because, quote, "No offense, honey, but a stepmother is not the same." Each call, I said I would think about it. Each call, I hung up and stared at the ceiling. I knew what I was going to do. I just did not yet know how. By the 2nd week of March, I had a plan. By the 3rd week of March, I had a printed copy of a program with 1 line changed. By the night before the wedding, I had 140 copies of that program in a box in the trunk of my car. And I had not told a single person, not Odessa, not Henry, not Whitney, not my father. Some things you cannot say out loud until they are done. If you have ever watched someone quietly do the work of a parent while someone louder took the credit, drop a single word in the comments. The word that woman would most want to hear from you right now. I will be reading every one of them. Trust me on that. The dress fitting was the 1st week of February. I had ordered a simple ivory crepe gown from a small boutique on Lexington Avenue. Long sleeves, high neck, a single line of pearls along the cuffs. The neckline ran straight across my collarbone. There was no drama in the dress. That was on purpose. Patricia had insisted on coming to the fitting. She had driven up the night before and stayed at a hotel 2 blocks from the shop. She arrived 20 minutes early in a cream wool coat and lipstick. The seamstress was a woman named Jolene, who had been doing alterations in Asheville for 33 years. Jolene did not waste words. She put me on the platform in the dressing room and started pinning the bodice. Patricia sat on the velvet bench by the wall. After 10 minutes, Patricia walked over to the rack at the back of the shop, where the floor samples in discontinued styles were hung. She came back holding a long strap of white silk, a sash that had been used as a sample. She held it up against herself. She caught Jolene's eye in the mirror. She laughed. "Imagine," she said, "or if I wore this." I watched her in the mirror. I did not turn around. Jolene froze, with 3 pins still in her mouth. "Imagine," Patricia said again, "if I wore white to my own daughter's wedding." She was making it a joke. She was floating it. She was testing. I said very evenly, "That would be a choice." Patricia laughed. She hung the sash back on the rack. She said, "Don't worry, sweetheart, I'm not crazy." I watched her in the mirror. She was watching me too. She was watching to see what my face would do. My face did not do anything. I had spent 14 years training my face not to do anything when Patricia was looking at it. A week after the fitting, Patricia asked me for the guest list. She said she wanted to send personal notes of thanks to each guest for celebrating with her family. I had 3 different reactions to this. I had the warm reaction, which lasted 4 seconds. I had the suspicious reaction, which lasted 3 seconds. I had the careful reaction, which lasted from the 3rd second onward. I sent her the list. I added one small thing. I added Vincent J. Castellano with the address of the office in La Jolla that I had pulled from Whitney's research. I did not tell Patricia I had added him. I waited. Patricia called me the next morning. She had 3 questions. She wanted to know if the wedding had a black tie dress code. It did not. She wanted to know if the bridesmaids would have a separate processional song from mine. They would not. And she wanted to know. And here she paused, and her voice changed half a register. "Honey, I noticed a Vincent Castellano on the list. Is that, someone you and Henry know? An old family friend, maybe?" I held my phone very still. I said, "He's a name from the guest list, Mom. I think Henry's mother knows him." She was quiet for 2 seconds. Then she said, "Oh, of course, sweetie. I just wanted to make sure I had the correct address on the envelope. It's a beautiful name." She did not say beautiful. She said beautiful. I heard the pause around the word. She had recognized the name. She had recognized the city. She had not asked anything else. I told Whitney that night. Whitney said very quietly, "Calla, your mother is afraid of you. That is the moment to act." In the 3rd week of March, Patricia drove up to Asheville for what she called a planning weekend. She arrived on Friday afternoon in a rental car with 2 suitcases. Henry and I had set up the guest room, clean sheets, fresh flowers, a small bowl of mints on the nightstand. She unpacked her larger suitcase in front of me, in the guest room, on the bed. She unzipped it slowly. She lifted out a layer of tissue paper. Beneath the paper was a long pearl-white silk gown with a low V-back and a small train. She held it up. She turned it toward the light. "It is champagne pearl," she said. "Not white." The salesgirl was very clear. "It catches the light differently. It looks white in some lights, but it isn't, honey, I promise." I looked at the gown. It was white. There was no other word for it. It was the exact shade of bridal white that I had asked Jolene to alter mine away from, in case there was an issue with the lighting at the venue. I did not say it was white. I said, "It's a beautiful dress, Mom." She breathed out. She smiled. She laid the dress back on the bed. She covered it with tissue paper. Then she said very softly, "Sweetheart, this is my last chance to be beautiful." I had heard her say similar things before. I had heard her say similar things at the fitting. I had heard her say similar things on a phone call in November. But this was the one that broke the seal. I put down my teacup. I did not pick it up again that night. I did not say anything for a long minute. The kettle on the stove had gone quiet. Henry was upstairs taking a shower. Jonas was at home in Asheville with Odessa for the weekend. Patricia had asked us not to bring him along because she said children at planning meetings were a distraction. I had agreed. Henry had not been happy. I had told him it was 3 days. Patricia sat on the edge of the bed. She folded her hands in her lap. She was wearing a beige cashmere sweater and small pearl studs. Her hair was platinum and freshly washed. She looked, at that moment, like a woman in a real estate brochure. She looked like a woman who had been practicing this conversation for weeks. I sat down in the small chair by the window. I said, "Mom, you can't wear white to my wedding." Her face changed in 3 stages. First, the practiced softness. Then, a flicker of calculation. Then, the tears. She had always been able to do the tears. She did the tears now very slowly. "Calla," she said. "Honey." "Mom, this is not white." The salesgirl was very clear. "It is champagne pearl. It is a tone." "It is white, Mom. The tone is white." She put her hand to her chest. She breathed in. She let her shoulders drop. She let the tears come out of her eyes very neatly, the way she had cried in our kitchen the day she left. "Sweetheart, why are you doing this to me?" "I'm not doing anything to you, Mom. I'm telling you what color the dress is. This is the dress I have left." "You have other dresses, Mom." "I have not been beautiful in 15 years. I did not respond to that. I let it sit. She tried again. "Calla, I am 60 years old. I will never look like this again. Do you understand what that is? Do you understand what it is to know that you are running out of beauty?" I did. I understood it the way one understands a language one has not spoken. I had heard Patricia talk this way my whole life. The conversation we were having was not a conversation. It was a script she had written. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. The lipstick smudged. She looked briefly like a child. "If you make me wear something else," she said, "I won't come." There it was. "You won't come to my wedding?" "Calla, you cannot put me in some sad mother color." "Mom, I am not putting you in anything. I am asking you to dress like a guest. I am asking you to dress like a mother. I am not asking you to dress like a bride." "Then I will not come, and every single guest will whisper. They will whisper for the rest of your life. She let that sit. She wanted it to land. It did land, but not the way she thought. I sat in the chair by the window, and I watched her cry. I noticed for the first time that her tears were perfect. They came out one at a time, evenly spaced from each eye. They never spilled. They never dripped. They balanced in her lower lash line like beads on a wire. I thought about Odessa's bruised hand. I thought about the veil on the rocking chair. I thought about the 11-minute speech at the shower. I thought about the cake in Charlotte with the wrong wedding date. I thought about the postcard from La Jolla in 2010 with its empty 4 words. I thought about the photo of Patricia in a coral bikini in 2013. I thought about my middle name, spelled B. I made my decision. I said, "Okay, Mom, you can wear it." She blinked. She had not expected the answer to come that fast. She had been prepared for an argument. She tilted her head. "What? You can wear the dress. Wear what you want. I won't fight you on it." She started to cry differently. Not the practiced tears, but the real ones. The ones that did not balance on the lash line. The ones that came out messy and grateful. She got up from the bed. She came to my chair. She knelt down in front of me. She took my face in her hands. She said, "Thank you, baby. Thank you. You are such a good daughter. I knew you would understand." She kissed my forehead. She left for Charlotte the next morning with the dress packed in tissue paper in the suitcase. She told me she could not wait to walk down my aisle. I told her I would see her on April 19th. That night, after she drove off, I took my laptop to the firm. It was a Sunday. The office was empty. I sat down at my desk. I opened the file for the wedding program. I scrolled to the second page where the order of ceremony was listed, and I scrolled to the bottom of that page where the wedding party was named. The line read, "Mother of the bride, Patricia Hayes." I deleted it. I typed in its place, "Mother of the bride, Odessa Hartwell, the woman who showed up." I saved the file. I sent it to the printer. The printer ran for 45 minutes. I sat at my desk and watched it. I stapled the programs by hand, 2 pages each, 140 copies. I put them in a cardboard box. I drove home. The next morning, I called the wedding coordinator, a woman named Marlo Fenton, who had been doing weddings in the botanical gardens for 9 years. I asked her to swap the front row aisle seat tag from Patricia Hayes to a place card I would bring myself. I told her where Patricia's new seat would be, row 5, aisle, the seat directly behind my dad's youngest cousin. Marlo did not ask questions. She is a professional. She said, "Yes, ma'am." That night, I sat at my kitchen table and wrote one note on a small cream card. I wrote in the same kind of careful handwriting I had used for the place cards. "Odessa is in the seat that mothers earn." I folded the card in half. I put it in an envelope with Patricia's name on it. I sealed it. I put the envelope on the chair in row 5 aisle. I did not tell Odessa. I did not tell my father. I did not tell Whitney. I did not tell Henry. I told no one. Some things you have to do alone. Saturday, April 19th. 68 degrees and clear. The peonies in the south bed at the botanical gardens had opened the day before, pink ones the size of softballs, in their first full bloom of the year. Marlowe had clipped 6 of them for the altar arrangement. The whole garden smelled like the inside of a slow morning. I got ready in the small stone cottage at the south end of the grounds, with Whitney and the other 3 bridesmaids. Odessa was there too. She had brought the veil in a paper box. She handed it to me. She had hemmed the last 6 inches the night before. Her hand still had the small purple bruise. She put the veil on my head. She did not say anything. She kissed my cheek. Patricia arrived at 3:45. I heard her in the courtyard before I saw her. She was telling the photographer where she would like to stand for the candids. The photographer was a woman named Beth. Beth came inside the cottage and made eye contact with me through the mirror. She mouthed very slowly 2 words. They were 2 words I do not need to write down. Patricia came into the cottage at 3:50. She was in floor-length white silk. She had small pearl earrings and a delicate white shawl. Her hair was platinum and pinned half up. She walked into the dressing room. She stopped. She did the small theatrical gasp I had heard 100 times in my life. She said, "Oh, sweetheart, you look so beautiful." Odessa looked at the floor. Whitney looked at Odessa. Marin, who was passing through the cottage with a tray of small water bottles for the bridesmaids, looked at Patricia, and her face did something I had never seen on her face before. It was the face of a woman who had decided about another woman in real time. I smiled. I said, "Thank you, Mom. You should head to your seat. Ceremony starts at 4. Patricia turned toward me. She looked for 1/2 second, as if she was going to say something else. Then she did not. She turned around. She left the cottage. At 3:57, the string quartet began Pachelbel's canon. The guests took their places. At 4, my dad came to the cottage door. He had Jonas with him. Jonas was in a small charcoal suit with a peony boutonniere. Jonas reached up and held my hand. He had practiced this in front of the mirror at home for 2 weeks. I walked out of the cottage with my dad on one side and Jonas on the other. We turned the corner onto the long stone path that led to the altar. Patricia stood at the top of the aisle. She was waiting for the wedding coordinator to walk her down. She turned. She saw me. She smiled. She lifted her shoulders back. She made eye contact with the photographer. Marlowe Fenton stepped to her side. Marlowe said very quietly, "Mrs. Hayes, your seat is this way." She gestured down the aisle. Patricia began to walk. She walked slowly because she had been planning this walk for weeks. She lifted her chin. She let the silk gown move around her ankles. She smiled at faces on either side of the aisle. The guests turned to watch her. First because the mother of the bride is meant to be watched, then because she was in white. About halfway down the path, on her left side, there was a chair in the second row with a wedding program folded neatly on the seat. Patricia reached down. She picked it up. She held it open as she walked. It was a slow walk. There was time to read. I was watching from the top of the path behind a curtain of wisteria. I saw her face when she got to the second page. She stopped. She did not stagger. She did not gasp. She did not put her hand to her mouth. She simply stopped walking. She stood in the middle of the aisle, in white silk, in the spring sunlight, holding a folded paper. She read it. She read it again. Her eyes moved from the line to the front row and back to the line. Odessa was in the front row. Navy linen dress, small pearl buttons that I had sewn on the cuffs myself that morning. She was sitting in the seat that had been labeled, since the rehearsal the night before, as the seat for mother of the bride. She had not noticed the label change. Whitney had handled the rehearsal. Odessa had simply sat where the planner pointed. Patricia's eyes moved to the chair behind Odessa's, in row 5, where a small envelope sat on the seat with her name on it. She did not move toward it. She did not move at all. The string quartet kept playing Pachelbel's canon because that was what they were trained to do. The wisteria above the aisle stirred in a small breeze. A baby in row 8 made a sound, and someone soothed it. I stepped out from behind the wisteria. I walked to the top of the aisle. Patricia turned. She saw me. We looked at each other across 30 feet of stone path. I did not say anything. I did not need to. She had read the line. I nodded. Just once. I looked at Odessa. Odessa looked at me. Her eyes filled. She did not understand yet. She thought, and I knew this because I'd thought through it the night before, she thought I was simply asking her to stand up for some reason. She stood up. I motioned very slightly with my hand. Come. Odessa stepped out of her row. She walked, in her quiet, careful way, down the aisle toward me. She passed Patricia on her left side. Patricia did not move. Odessa did not look at her. Patricia did not look at her either. Odessa reached the top of the aisle. She stood beside me. She put her arm through mine. I felt her hand on my forearm. I felt the bruise on the back of her hand against the inside of my elbow. I said to her low, "Mom, walk me down." She looked up at me. Her eyes were full of tears that had not yet fallen. She did not say anything. She just nodded. We walked down the aisle together. Robert and Jonas walked behind us. Patricia was still standing in the middle of the path when we reached her. Robert touched her shoulder gently as he passed. Just touched it. Did not push. Did not pull. Did not stop. Patricia stepped to the side. We finished the walk. I married Henry under the wisteria. I said my vows. He said his. We kissed. The string quartet stopped playing Pachelbel and started playing something brighter. At the reception that night, in the tent on the south lawn, the DJ called Odessa and me to the floor for the mother-daughter dance. I had chosen Landslide, Fleetwood Mac, because Odessa had played it for me on the drive home from college my freshman year, when I had cried in the passenger seat the whole way back. Odessa came to the floor in her navy linen. We danced. She put her cheek against my shoulder. She did not say anything. The room was quiet. Patricia sat at table 12 in the back of the tent. Her soup was untouched. She had not changed out of the white silk gown. Jonas walked across the room. He climbed onto the chair next to Patricia. He did not say anything. He put his small hand on the back of her chair, the way he held the back of his own chair at our dinner table at home. He sat there. I do not know what Patricia did then. I did not look. I was dancing with my mother. If this story has reminded you of someone in your life who quietly showed up while someone louder took the credit, do not wait. Go find that person this week before another Sunday slips by and tell them you saw it. Tell them you know. The people who stay rarely ask to be thanked. Be the one who tells them anyway. 6 weeks after the wedding, I wrote my mother a letter. I wrote it by hand. I wrote it 3 times before I sent it. It was not a long letter. It said that I forgave her. It said that I would not forget. It said that she would be a Row 5 presence in my life from now on. Not as punishment, but as the safe distance for both of us. It said that birthday cards would arrive. It said that holidays would not. I mailed it on a Friday in early June. She replied a week later. The envelope was small and cream. Inside was a folded note card. In her round, looping handwriting, in pencil in the middle of the card, were 2 words. I understand. That was all. I have not heard from her since. I do not know yet what comes next. I do not know whether a card on her 61st birthday next October will be the start of something or the end of something. I know only that whatever it is, I will not be standing in white silk in any of her mirrors anymore. In the fall, Henry and I bought a small house on a half-acre in the Beaver Dam Valley, 15 minutes outside of Asheville. The backyard was overgrown, and the soil was good, and the previous owner had left behind a pair of pruning shears on the porch that I have been using ever since. I designed Odessa a small herb garden in the corner closest to the back door. Sage and rosemary and lemon balm and 4 kinds of mint. She comes over on Sundays. She drinks coffee at our kitchen table. She brings Jonas, who is 11 now, and who has discovered that he likes to read on the floor next to the dishwasher because the warm air comes out of the side vent. My dad comes too. He sits in the chair Henry built. He does not say much. He never has. Some women are mothers because they gave birth. Others are mothers because they stayed. There is room for one of them at my table every Sunday. The other one gets a card in the mail.